This is something that I've been looking forward to for quite some time now, because from today, we're giving first-time non-technical founders the confidence to build the world that they want. And we're doing this by removing the risks too often associated with outsourcing. So, I've got three things that I'd like to talk about with you today. And the first one is the problem that we are solving. The second is how we're solving the problem. And the third is what makes us different. So let's get started with the first one, the problem that we're solving. Now, we're targeting this initiative for a first-time non-technical founder or entrepreneur because they're usually the ones with a limited budget. They can't hire a chief technical officer or bring developers in-house. And since they can't build the project themselves, they will hire a dev shop or a freelancer to build their first version of an MVP or minimum viable product. The problem with that is that that's like leaving your baby in the care of a guy that's just moved in next door. But also on top of that, the new founder often needs help to get clarity on whether the problem that they're attempting to solve is worth solving in the first place and whether they understand the customer well. So usually their inability to build the application themselves is the least of their problems. Now, there are three problems with outsourcing, especially at this stage, that stand out for me. And the first one is delays, because it often takes longer to get the first version of a minimum viable product out, because as it turns out, your dev shop or freelancer, they have other priorities. You'll be hard pressed to find one that gives your project the attention that it deserves. And the result, of course, is that you will spend way more money that you might expect up front. It's frustrating and insanely stressful, especially if you borrowed money or raised some money from angel investors. The second problem is mediocre work. Now, these people are not as fired up as you are about your revolutionary idea. They are motivated by something different, something else. They are billable hours. So a lot of this work they do ends up in a bin anyway. The real problem here is that they would just go with whatever is convenient for them. Maybe use an outdated technology because they don't have a developer with a modern skill, and that's a cost they don't want to incur. And how are you supposed to know as a business owner? You know nothing about jQuery, for example, which is an outdated technology that many of them still use today. So there is a good chance that the outsourced developer builds your project in a way that your technical team you hire later on won't agree with. And so too often, the solution is to tear everything down and build anew. And this can be expensive, stressful, and this is where a lot of new businesses run out of money. And the last one is scale. Congratulations, the dev shop has just delivered the first version of your project, but then you realize that it hasn't solved the problem. But the good news is that you have figured out what it does, and now you need to iterate. Now, to have these iterations with the dev shop on the other side of the world is incredibly difficult. And let's not mention the fact that there is a chance you'll be misunderstood and end up with a version of the product completely different from the one that you ordered. This all means that you will need to spend way more time and way more money. But it gets worse, because it could be multiple versions of your solution before you reach one that actually solves the problem. So as you can see, these are incredibly huge problems. And this brings us to the second thing that I would like to talk about with you today. And that is, how do we solve these incredibly huge problems? Well, at Involve Technologies, we have thought really hard about this. That is, how do we make this process less painful for a new founder who still has to outsource because it's really the only way since their budget is limited? How do we give them the confidence to build the world that they want? Well, we're going to tell them to wait until they have raised enough angel money so that they can bring in a CTO and maybe hire developers, because usually that's the only way to get a meaningful project off the ground. But that's not what we're going to tell them. We're going to solve this with a complete executable blueprint, a blueprint that you can give a dev shop, a freelancer, or a development firm to execute. So, an executable blueprint. But how are we going to do this? Well, several key things. And the first one is we're going to listen. We're going to start by truly listening. Now, this is something a lot of dev shops don't do very well. What listening does is allow us to stand in your shoes to truly understand your vision, understand who you're building for, and get clarity to see if the problem is worth solving in the first place. And before you invest a ton of money and time in development. And also at this stage, we are looking to see if we're a good fit and if yours is a problem that we can actually solve. So, listening, because it's only after getting this clarity that we then draw up a blueprint, sketch out all the details of your project. And the way we do this is by leveraging our deep expertise that a true consulting practice affords us and scan this ever-evolving development ecosystem for the best tools, technologies, and processes. Now, a lot of consulting firms and web development agencies, they try to do so many things, and so they end up doing nothing really well. We are a single-minded consulting company, and our specialty is software. The only product of our engagement is an executable blueprint. It's not a marketing campaign, and it's not hands to build a project. It is none of that stuff. And what this affords us now is that we can channel or direct all our resources in research and development and truly understand more than anyone why something works and why it doesn't. So that when you come to us, you get the very best that there is. Now, our blueprint will cut the time it takes to develop your project in half. Because all a freelancer has to do really is to execute. Think of this as a house building process. Everything is already mapped out, and all a foreman has to do is lay the bricks. Our solutions are also designed with scaling in mind and best practices because we know that it's unlikely your first version will solve the problem that you're trying to solve. And lastly, we'll be there for guidance even after our engagement in case you need to iterate or answer any questions as they come. So that is how we're solving the problem. The third thing that I would like to talk about with you today is what makes us different. Now, I'm super excited to do this because I have thought a lot about contribution. What kind of enterprise should we build and who should we serve? Now, a question like, how can I contribute is tied to values. That is, what do we stand for and what is our place in the world? Because an enterprise is really going to be just an extension. It's just going to amplify these ideals. This, I think, is a new way of looking at business. For me, I truly believe that a lot more people should get involved in shaping the direction of the world. And we're going to work really hard to find ways to help individuals overwhelm, undermine, and circumvent the barriers to entry. That is the core of why I do what I do. This is what Involve Technology stands for. Now, for people to get involved, of course, there are so many avenues that they can take. For us, we believe the first step is we want to make it easier and safer and more affordable for people to build a world that they want using software. Now, if these ideals that you share, I want to invite you to come and work with us. Thanks for watching.